Bertha Birdy Mueller-Heatley was a young woman who grew up in Grove City, Pennsylvania. Looking for work, she signed up for aviation classes during the onset of World War II at Grove City Airport. As both a pilot and a civilian, Birdy can provide insight details on the role of women in aviation and Americans in flight.
In 1939, the United States government started a co-ed training program for civilians designed to increase the pool of potential pilots for the upcoming war. After the war began in 1941, the program was discontinued in favor of an all-male war training service, which was itself terminated in 1944 to increase ground forces. After, civilians could pursue pilot's licenses at select airports across the country, including women. Beginning in 1943, the Women Air Force Service pilots, or WASPs, were the armed forces equivalent, and together, these two forms of aviation pioneered the way for female pilots. However, some WASPs faced difficulties being accepted by the men in the service.
Their main job was to transport airplanes from the factory to the base where they would be used. Once the airplane was finished and ready to be put into service, these women would fly the airplanes to where they were needed. But it was always in the country, it wasn't out of the country. For instance, if the factory was in New England and they had to fly the airplane to Arizona, sometimes they'd have to stop for gas en route, and they'd stop at an army base, and they would pull up for gasoline, and they weren't the mechanics, but the workers who filled the airplanes with gas were very resentful. They thought, if those women weren't allowed to fly, maybe I'd have a chance to fly. So they didn't treat them nice.
The men's program, launched in 1941, helped to combat this rift.
The participants had to enlist in it was the Army at that point. They didn't have the Air Force, but they enlisted in the Army Air Corps, and they didn't know what was going to happen in the United States, but they figured it wouldn't hurt to have a trained group of people who could fly.
As the men began entering into the war effort, soon there were available opportunities for the civilian women.
I didn't really have a program. There were other women from Grove City who signed up to take lessons like I did.
A key part of a pilot's career was the logbook. Shown here is Birdy's.
It was government required,
Okay.
and especially, and I think it still is, and you really want it because you want to document all your flights. But in wartime, it would be particularly important.
Other important wartime effects and necessities were the severe restrictions the fighting placed on civilians.
Everybody was involved in was the war rationing. Our food was rationed, our gas was rationed, our shoes were rationed.
Oh, wow.
That part. My mother had what they called a victory garden. She planted vegetables in our yard, which was just a small suburban yard. Used to be grass. She planted some vegetables, but and of course we recycled. We got very little as civilian drivers.
Included in the rationing was the drastic cutback on fuel.
People heavily involved in the war effort. They would get C cards. There were A, B, and C.
Okay.
A was the least gas, C was the most.
Finally ending the war, and therefore this rationing, was the surrender of the Japanese forces in 1945.
What was it, August 14th, that the Japanese surrendered,
Mhm.
And it was a most exciting day, you can well imagine. And the school even gave us the day off classes. That was a surprise. And it was VJ Day. Several of us made our way to the airport, and we hatched a plot. We took the large waste baskets that were in the office, filled them with every scrap of paper we could find. We tore up newspapers and magazines, and we flew over Grove City and gave it its own interpretation or its own version of a ticker tape parade.
After the war, to help the readjustment of servicemen into society, the government passed the GI Bill of Rights on June 22, 1946. Providing a range of benefits, it helped acclimate the returning veterans back into civilian life.
It affected my husband. He was from a very deprived family, and he had been drafted into the service, and then when he was discharged in, was it 1946, he was eligible to take part in the GI Bill, and he wanted to go to college, and he was certainly qualified, and his family couldn't do it. So anyway, he took a job, lived at home, and helped support his family, and he would go to the University of Pittsburgh at night school, and he would, in 10 years, it took him to get his engineering degree.
Okay.
But now, the GI Bill of Rights did not last that whole 10 years. He ran out, but at least it helped. Got him started. Yeah.
World War II brought many changes to the American aviation industry. Boosting the economy and allowing fresh pilots, the numerous programs helped further the advancement of individuals, including women. Both civilian and military pilots alike paved the way for future flight. Airports across the nation began the flying careers of many individuals, and thus both men and women benefited from such endeavors.